The reason why we don't use music off of the internet is
Just a
simply...
minute, you need to do it.
No.
There we go.
Oh,
It was me.
You needed to broadcast that.
okay. So just to explain, the reason why we don't use, songs through the internet is because, well, my preference is, I like us just singing and expressing our hearts. But also there's there's legal, all that stuff that you got to deal with. And so as a result of that, that's why we don't do it. Just because it adds another complexity to what we have to go through administratively to accomplish that. So with that said, I would like to say, this message this morning, I don't know if you looked at the top yet, kids' role in submission. Okay, so everybody from the age of 20 and upwards, you guys leave. No, I'm just kidding. All of us going, wait a minute, I drove all this way for that. But anyway, no. But primarily this morning, this message is focused at young ones. Now, it can apply, in respect to the standard all across the boundary. But primarily, God, we've come through this in Ephesians. We looked at the woman's role or the wife's role in the family or in the marriage. We've looked at the husband's role in the marriage. Now we're going to turn to the broader family perspective of it. And I remember years ago I did this message when Jeremy and Christina were little. Christina's feet didn't even touch the ground. So, it's been a while. But this message, it never gets old. And just as important as it is for wives to know how they are to respond to their husbands, to know their God-given responsibility, and just as important as it is that men know what their God-given responsibility is in the marriage, so it is essential also that kids know, that young ones understand their role in the family. Because again, who is the one who created the family? God did. Who is the one who has the right to tell us how that family is supposed to, function? Come on. All right. So, young ones, Zuli, Zidane, I want to hear your voices today. Gabby, you're right in that boundary, so. Well, she's a little over it, but she can encourage her sisters. Laura Jean, Joanna Grace, other more ladies, Lydia. But I want to invite you, I want to call your attention to the truth of this, because the truth that is here in God's Word is God's truth. It's not mine. It's God's truth. I simply accept it because I don't have any other real choice, nor would I want to have. Because even as Bill talked about this morning, if we try to elevate our opinion or ourselves to some ridiculous degree and want to accept my own opinion over God's, then I am nothing but wrong. So I just want to challenge. The words today is obey and honor and critical words. We're going to look at the meaning and the understanding of those words, but that's what it says. So I'm going to ask a few questions just in kind of bringing this around. Where does the principle and practice of submission come from? Do you remember what, and do you remember what its definition is? So, think back. Now, because we've been weeks away from that particular verse, in verse 20, chapter 5, verse 21 of Ephesians, it says this: be subject to one another in the fear of Christ. Now, get it, that what he's talking to is the church. Now he's brought that statement of truth into the family. He talked about it in regard to husbands and wives. He's talked about it now, and he's talking about it now in regard to the children within that family. And again, who are the group of people, specifically the group of people that he was speaking to as Paul was writing this book by the Spirit of God? Christians. So, as he's addressing husbands and wives, he's addressing Christian husbands and wives. As he's addressing the children, he's addressing Christian children, those who are part of the church. Now, without a question, there were probably people at the church at Ephesus, which were probably several smaller bodies of people that meet together. But he was, without question, also addressing some of those who were not yet Christians, but informing them, this is God's plan, this is God's intention for those who are his people. And quite honestly, when people hear that, they can begin to recognize the value and the benefit. So, as we go through this, kids, keep in mind that submission is God's plan. It was stated at the beginning of this section. And the definition of submission is?
Willing subordination.
That's it. It's a military term, and it just means one who places himself under the authority of another. Now, granted, as as kids, it's not like you got up one morning and said, you know what, I just really love to have my mom and dad's authority over me. But you know what? The same is true with wives. The same is true with husbands. It's not natural to us. It is not a natural desire nor an instinct within our person because of sin that resides within. It's not our natural instinct to take a position of subjection or subordination. It's our inclination in our old self to say, don't tell me, right? Kids, have you ever said that? Remember, this is for you. Now, moms and dads, you kind of try to hold it down. Don't answer for them. But so it's contrary to our naturalness. It's contrary to our lost nature to want to submit, because we all want to be our own boss. And you know, golly moly, that's in our society. What does our society promote? Do your own thing. Be your own boss. Be the how do they say? Okay.
Be all you can be.
Okay, all these kind of different statements. It's promoting that selfism inside that is contrary to God's plan. Because God's plan is a plan that works. It's proven itself down through the ages, but it's not popular. Just like God himself is not popular. But he is God. So, as I go through this, keep in mind, so it's willing subordination, and that means willingly placing yourself under another's authority. Now, as I asked the ladies when I started this section, I said, ladies, how many of you chose to marry your husbands? And every hand of the married lady went up. Some of them went up a little bit more grudging. Bill had to put, no, he didn't. But you chose to do that. It wasn't as though any of you were given away or sold to someone else. And this is just a story to kind of bring that out. When Charlie and I were in Uganda the first time, no, it's the second time, Mark Henry, a friend of mine, he went and he had all three of his kids that were with him. And it was Ronnie, Johnny, and Missy. Okay, well, Missy was over there, and she was a late teen, very pretty young lady. And Ronnie, her little brother, he was a character. Anyway, after we'd been there about 4 or 5 days,